Just do a quick sound check to see if it's... Seems like it's live. Yeah, okay.
There you go.
Beautiful. There's a delay.
Yep.
All right. Welcome to the October 16th, 2024 Master Plan Subcommittee meeting. We are going to continue reviewing our Master Plan survey, which this latest draft, everyone has a hard copy of.
We do. Yep.
Most likely, we'll be able to go through this pretty quickly this evening, and then as far as other agenda items, minutes are going to be postponed to the next meeting. And just to report that Sean has resigned from the committee. So, did you have an opportunity to look at this?
I did.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
So, so let's go page by page.
Yeah,
Any
sure.
questions on the first page? Page one.
No, I don't believe so.
Okay. So I'm just going to put a
Sure. Yep.
blue mark on it. The only thing, yeah, so this is just a formality as far as
Yep.
the document is concerned, because what is going to show up in SurveyMonkey is not going to be looking like this.
Yeah,
but
those were most of my
generality.
questions,
Yeah,
is
yeah.
what this translates to. But, yeah.
Page two is pretty straightforward.
Yep.
Okay, as well as page three.
Yes.
So you'll note that at the end of each section, is there anything else you'd like to add is a recurring theme?
Yep.
We had reviewed a little bit for transportation of that previous report from the senior center,
Yep.
and felt that we still wanted to have this section, so.
Can I ask a quick demographics question?
Yep.
And we might not want to open this can of worms now, but questions that are pertaining to the household, such as, like how many children live in your household, or what's the total income of your household? So the respondent is an individual, or the respondent is a household? And I think we were leaning to it's individuals, because there's multiple opinions per household. So how
Right.
do we avoid, like, how does that data get aggregated in that way?
What's the difference in the question? Sorry.
So, okay, so let's say there's two adults in my
Yep.
household, and we're
Uh-huh.
both gonna say our household has the income X.
Okay.
And now, from a reporting standpoint, that's
Oh, I
two
understand what you're
households,
saying.
but we're actually one household.
I hear you.
So I don't quite have this
So,
conceptualized.
I think that if that's gonna be something that we need to, break out, that's gonna have to be addressed as far as the delivery is concerned, as to, there might be another prior question at the very beginning. Are you responding as an individual, or are you responding as a household?
Well, so does it not, and I'm not, it's a question. Does question 12 to that point, because I hear what you're saying, does it not capture household, right? It says total annual, it says total and it says household, right?
Exactly, so if, I'll answer my number, and then the other adult in my household will answer her number, but
But that's okay, isn't it?
now it seems like that's two different households.
But
So like in our big pie graph, we'll say, all right, now
Yeah.
like 20% of where households have this income, but actually it's just, we're double reporting every household with two adults now.
But are you double report? I see what you're saying. I'm just trying to think of it like, is it? And I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just trying to. Is it double reporting because you're still? It's not taking a per unit account of each individual respondent, because it's still saying household regardless. So regardless of where the household income is coming from, the total's still gonna be the same per respondent. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yes, but it'll on paper it'll be two households. In reality, it's one household.
Right.
Right.
So I think the best way to answer that is to give instruction at the beginning.
Yeah.
So that's one of the pieces that we have yet to talk about.
And that's
as far
why I was
as-
like hesitant to ask this question.
Yeah, no, I think if we go the route of, we would prefer a respondent to be representative of the household.
Okay,
Or that we have another question prior to, as part of the introduction, are you,
Well, and I don't want to get hung up on it too much either, but for example, right, is it not, so just for example, and it doesn't matter, right? Like, so my wife and I are married, one household income that comes from me. She is still responding that the household income is X.
Right.
Even though it's not from
But so
her.
if- right,
You know what I'm
but it-
saying?
right,
Like,
but
so
to
that's
Phil's point-
she wouldn't
right.
put zero.
right, but to Phil's point, though, he's concerned that we may, say our average is 3,700 households. Now, all of a sudden, we've got 4,900 households.
I guess I know it. Yeah, okay, fair enough.
So I'm leaning towards giving that clear instruction that we're not looking for so much individuals, we're looking for a household representation.
Or do you say the opposite? Because it's funny, because, you talk about the two, if you have two, I guess you can't have two heads, right? But, you have two combined, and we're just talking about income in this instance. Like, you have two combined incomes, that's a total. But you're also still gonna have a total if one is, 100% of the income and one is zero.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
But
Like,
you're not gonna know that, and I think that's Phil's concern.
I get that. So do we ask almost the opposite, which would be, for every adult, you would go by individual respondent rather than household to actually capture it.
that's a workaround.
You know what I'm saying? Like because that's how you would capture it. That's how you would capture the per unit, income amount
Other
per
than,
respondent.
other than income, are there questions that would,
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
anyway, I think it would be important for each adult to have a voice, because you could have wildly different opinions within the house.
Yeah, and you will, because you're gonna have them each individually, I'm assuming this would go over, actually, I didn't know that. Is this everyone over 18? Apologies if we said that
Yes,
before.
yes.
It is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So they are gonna respond. So they're gonna have you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, unless we structured it as you get one household gets one survey.
which I don't think we're doing, right?
And I would not want to do that
Yeah,
personally.
yeah. No, I agree. I agree with that.
So currently, we have 4,000 as of, what's this date? As of 6/19/23. That's the latest figures I have. There are 4,026 total household housing units in Ware. That doesn't mean they're all filled either, because there could be some
Yeah, fair enough.
abandoned homes, et cetera. So if we address,
I think maybe it does only pertain to the income thing. I don't.
yeah,
I'm not
that's
positive
the
of
only
that,
question
right?
that it deals with.
It would, right? Because you're still
Because
gonna
they're
have
not-
per unit responses for everything.
Right.
Well, so question 9, 10, 11, are, the unit is household. How many adults in the household?
Right, right.
Children in the household.
All right, so
But that's not
Does
gonna
it-
double count.
does it matter to us
You know what I mean? Like,
that we have 4,000 housing units, and we get, is that a data point we're gonna be nitpicky on?
I don't know.
yeah, that's the question. I mean, that's the question.
Can we have 10,000 responses? Oh, no, we can't, because there's only 9,500 people,
Yeah, right. You would. Yeah, not everyone is. Yeah.
9,100, 9,200 people.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously that not everyone's over 18.
So, all right, so let's move on and think about that.
Yeah.
I'll make a note because we need to identify those
Yeah, it's an
those things
interesting-
in the instructions.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. It's an interesting question, certainly. Okay, were we on 3 that you were, or 4?
On page 4, yeah,
Okay.
6, transportation.
Oh, right, yep.
Okay, I don't think there's anything,
The only thing would be on that 17, and I think Salem mentioned it too, but, like, can the answer be there isn't one?
what do you think the most important transportation is, Rose?
Right. Oh, I'm sorry.
16, you
You're
mean?
right. Yep, I'm sorry. But I guess that's actually not a huge deal.
Okay,
I take, yeah, that's fine.
any thoughts, Phil? I'm good with this.
I'm okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Yep, you're right.
Okay. So, this next section, we spent a lot of time last meeting talking about the dynamics of what that looks like.
Yep.
Facility and then services. And if you remember, yeah, okay.
Yeah, at the top,
So that's how that's gonna break out. That's how he envisioned, that's how we envision this being broken out for each of these subsequent points,
Yep.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, the tile system.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay,
It's fine, yeah.
I think we're good.
Sure, yeah. Land use?
Yeah.
Yep. So there's a bullet hole in here.
Right.
Okay. So in our research at our last meeting, we discovered, because there was the way this was asked in the previous documents, it didn't delineate the difference between road access, rural ag, and then the rest were based on soil. So that's why that's broken out a little further. So you have that increased minimum lot size for gravel, 10, he's currently 10, and rural ag is 5, and 5, and then the increased minimum lots, residential, etc. And that currently depends on soil conditions rather than a number.
Yep.
And there's a graph or a table that tells us what can happen, etc. Just to kind of speed on what happened there.
Yep.
One moment, but I think we're okay.
Yeah.
Because there's 2 pages to this, don't
Yeah.
forget.
Yeah, not bad.
Okay.
Yeah, so on to zoning.
Yeah, housing
Yeah.
and zoning.
I did email Salem about this question specifically.
Okay.
I personally got confused by it. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just I didn't read the fine print, and that's my fault. But if I didn't read so what happened with I just read strongly opposed, and I didn't read the parenthetical words.
Yeah, yeah.
So I came down and said, do I strongly oppose or strongly support regulation for these following? So because I made that mistake, then he corrected me, I realized, why can't we just have a multiple choice question? So as opposed to a 1 to 5 scale, could you just do away with 1 to 5 and have like not, that's probably the best, I'm sorry, I'm not being clear on this. Just the options being just the parenthetical options without 1 to 5.
Well,
So should the town have, default, like, I'm confusing myself here.
Well, so do you mean the wording of the rank order being 1 through 5 in DK? And
No, it's-
just having the parenthetical under the section? Is that what you mean?
I guess just do it, so we have like 1 to 5 here with these opposed, neutral, support.
Oh, just one,
Then every bold has its own meaning. Like strongly opposed doesn't mean necessarily I oppose it, it just means.
I see what you're saying. So one is just one equals against having zoning or prefer a permissive approach.
I think that's what my point is.
Yeah, rather than saying oppose, which means against blah, blah,
Right.
blah. It would be one is against having zoning or prefer a permissive approach.
Yes.
So do you mean removing the bolded language that says oppose, strongly oppose,
Right, and
neutral,
that's-
support,
that's
blah, blah,
just-
blah?
This was more of a me problem.
I get what you're saying, though.
I think the concern or the issue that we were going for was consistency throughout the whole document, if you remember?
Yes, and I did mention that to Salem. I said, if we need consistency, then ignore my point.
Okay.
Yeah.
But this is helpful because this top box, it should be in a box.
Yeah.
In my mind, that this should be boxed out so that here's the instructions of what this is supposed to do. Because it's not fleshed out. The bottom, obviously, this will have a list, that list will be there.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know what I
okay.
mean?
Yeah.
And that's your multiple choice perspective. But the distinction here is now with those definitions, as opposed to,
Yeah.
are we failing or excellent?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
that's not what we're dealing with here.
No, and it's all, I know what you're saying, Phil. It's also not necessarily intuitive that the term oppose means against a permissive, it's almost like a double negative. It's not a double negative, actually, but it's not an intuitive, like, response for the parenthetical. I do know what you're saying. I don't necessarily have a better way to do it, and if we want consistency, but that does make sense. Like, if I just for example, I say, like, you know, I'm against, you know, just in general, I'm against detached accessory units, right? Like, if I say I strongly oppose them, does that mean that I don't want the regulation, or does that mean that I don't want the thing? Because there's a question there around, do you oppose the regulation of it, meaning that it's going to happen, or do you oppose the thing, in which case a regulation may mean that you don't want it? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily have a better answer, to be honest with you, but
Yeah.
I do hear you.
And this is the one thing he added in,
Yeah.
right, according to his email. So I'm thinking about this in response to concerning detached accessory units. If I'm strongly opposed to having zoning or prefer a permissive approach to that. That doesn't answer the question,
That's kind of what I mean. Like, it's,
right?
well, it's not obvious that you're answering the question, is how I would phrase it.
Right, but it doesn't answer the question, because if I'm strongly opposed, am I opposed to having
Yeah,
the units or having zoning
regulate, yes.
regulation about it, or zoning or permissive approach to it? I'm not sure if that's what I would be answering. I'd be answering, saying, no, I don't want anything to do with it. It has nothing to do with my zoning. I don't want it in the zoning.
Correct. You are right. You're categorizing this correctly. Yeah.
So I'm wondering if then some of these parentheses just need to be eliminated.
Right. Because it's not because you're making the correct point, which is Are we seeking to understand if people are against detached accessory units, which is really like the spirit of the question, right?
That's right.
But that's not what this is asking.
No.
This is asking, are you against
Yeah, but
zoning? So,
But zoning is sort of the proxy for approval of the units, right? So
Right.
if I don't support, if I don't want ADUs in where, I'm going to want the most stringent zoning possible, in which case I strongly support. As phrased, I want the most strict restrictions.
so that is the question to that point. Like, is the information more useful to the master plan to understand if people are for, are for this thing or against this thing, rather than are they for the zoning mechanism that's for or against this thing? So what's going to help inform the committee better? My instinct, although I'm happy to be wrong about this, is I think it would inform the planning board better to know that the response is I'm either for or against the thing, rather than I'm for or against the zoning of the
Let me
thing.
take what you said and build on it with when I misread this question to Salem, I said, could you rephrase this whole thing as, so instead of from support, in a spectrum of regulation, support for regulation, so broaden it up to, okay, Airbnb is in where?
Yep.
Prohibition, strict regulation, loose regulation, total
Okay,
freedom.
so what I would say then is we need that becomes a totally separate question.
Really? Okay. It can't be one neat spectrum of,
No, because what you just described is something that these other questions don't ask. These are specific to.
They are, yeah.
Whether you want short-term rentals, detached, affordable housing, that's specific to a particular thing. Whereas this is an assessment of the concept of zoning.
Right.
So this could be a different question
That's right.
asked, please, so it'd be 28, so then this would be 29, and then this is 30, and then 31. But the point is that 29 would be share your opinion of your understanding of zoning. Of zoning, of what you prefer. What is your preferred zoning mentality or preferred zoning understanding or whatever? And so that would give us better data pertaining to the concept rather than those things affecting these specific things.
I think that's right.
it could be. Right. I mean, I think in the spirit, I think we do need to ask about the zoning aspect too, though.
For each individual thing.
Why do I believe that? Just because that's how the
So for
are,
instance,
right?
for instance,
I'm asking.
as a just say detached accessory unit, you're not going to be able to just do that willy-nilly. You're going to have to do with your setbacks. You're going to have to take care of that dwelling. If it's detached, it's not the primary residence noted when you drive up to the property, because that's already in the zoning.
Mm-hmm.
That's in an attached accessory dwelling unit. So you can't, so here's the front of your house facing that way. I can't put the front entrance to the in-law apartment over here in conjunction, although there's a ton of them in town like that.
Yeah.
But the way the zoning works now, or is stated now, those two doors have to be opposite. So this door is the primary entrance to your home. Your accessory dwelling unit, which is an in-law or whatever, can be off to the side or out the back. It can't be on the same facade as the front main entrance to the home.
So I think I think it does, again, to your point, Phil, lend a difficulty in these specific instances, and actually even particularly on that first one, because it's probably unlikely that although I don't want to assume, but for now I'm going to assume, like, what we'd be seeking with the opinion on zoning is an instinct toward zoning, which is, you're correct, on a spectrum, right? It's like, I'm either very restrictive or very free. And that instinct is a data point, right, that says whatever. A quarter of our people are restrictive, a quarter of our people are whatever. But then, when it comes down to these specific pieces, your instinct around zoning in general probably isn't good. If I am a permissive person, I'm going to be permissive generally, I'd imagine, for each of these, for each individualized, category, right? And I don't want that to be at the expense of a confusing question, which would end up or could end up with a respondent saying, no, I answered strongly oppose because I oppose a regulation that would, ensure that I have, because regulation to me means it's not going to happen. So no, I oppose that because I'm permissive. But that's not what this is asking.
No,
So you actually have, there is a potential, you just said it, right? There is a potential for people to be answering this the wrong way because they're asking a zoning question and then they're asking a specific, thought process around a specific type of development. So that's how I would separate them.
So do you have any sort of vision into what the two questions are? So let's just use our detached accessory units. Are you saying we should have 2 points? Like, should we have this thing in where, yes or no? If we have it in where, what's the zoning look like? Is that what we're saying?
Well, so this question actually is asking, also this question is asking a binary. This question, as it's written, is asking, should the town have zoning regulations, which is a yes or no question, not a spectrum question, at least as it's written.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I know, like, it doesn't.
Correct.
It doesn't want to be asking that, but that is what it's asking.
Let's just pretend it says, how should zoning look like?
Yeah, fair enough. Right. So I'm not, I guess, I'm
Right,
trying to
so-
clarify what your confusion was, because I understand, and I think I think other people would read it that way also. So what is the best way? And is it getting rid of the oppose, neutral, support language, which was potentially first suggested? I'm not sure. But that just opened up the can, which was like,
So-
hey, I'm for more affordable housing. How do I answer yes to that? And if I answer yes to that, like, do I support it? Well, yeah, I do, but I don't know if that means I support the regulation.
Do the parenthetical options that Salem gave us work for you? Like, do we need another one?
Right. Well, I don't think they address the issue because they're still conflating the development question with the zoning question.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, they
So-
don't separate the thing that needs to be separated.
Right. So part of the question, if we make that first section a question, or put a question with it, the concern I have is that we're state mandated, we have voted to have zoning. Zoning
Yeah,
has
sure.
been implemented, so are we opening a can of worms to disregard and have no master plan? Because
Yeah.
75% of the community doesn't want it.
So here's a question. This is it's a like legal, like
Yeah, it's a
legal,
legal
whatever.
question.
So with that, with what you just said, Bill, is it actually true that we can't have the either support or against zoning piece anyway?
Right.
Because we have zoning.
Correct.
So what may clarify, what may be better is, hey, we have zoning, period, so whatever, get rid of that. And also what we're actually asking on the oppose is permissive, so what I would say is don't strike oppose, neutral, blah, blah, blah. It would be strike having zoning and just have the parenthetical be prefer a permissive approach, open to some restrictions, no strong opinion. I guess restrictions and then strict restrictions. Does that make sense? Because if you have to have zoning, A, and the zoning question is what's fouling us up, why don't you strike that from the parenthetical? And that mostly answers the question.
Right, because it doesn't make sense to say, should the town have zoning regulations for the following scenarios?
We do have them,
I'm against that,
yeah.
or
Right.
strongly opposed, but
So what would your what would your question be? How would you, like, so I would say, how should we look at zoning for the following, or, what would your phrasing be, Bill, for that question?
for 28?
Yeah. Just like spitball, kind of like what's the spirit of the question, as we say here on the subcommittee.
I'm more leaning towards yes or no, as opposed to all those little details.
Wait, yes or no for the zoning?
Should the
Or
town have zoning regulations for the following scenarios, yes or no?
Okay. Yeah, okay, okay.
And then, that way, it's not confusing. And then if we need to have a better understanding of people's perspective, what is your perspective of zoning in general? And we can get that information by putting that caveat above this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, are we seeking, it's
So-
an ends and a means question, right? It's like zoning is used for an end, for an end, not as an end.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's, well, yeah, I support, the question really is, I support the zoning that reaches my end. That's what, and I'm not saying that as a bad, as a bad thing, right? It's like, okay, I want to have way more affordable housing. That means I'm going to support the zoning that allows more affordable housing. Conversely, I, only want open space, meaning I'm going to support the zoning that supports open space. You know what I mean? So the question, it gets goofy when you say, do you support the zoning? So it's like, well, I don't know. Does the zoning support my end? Because that's what I care about. And I think what we're trying to ascertain is, what is the end of these questions? Not the means. The zoning is the means.
My instinct, Bill, is that the binary yes or no approach isn't adequate for us. Because I feel like we need zoning for, well, with the exception of vacation rentals, because that's sort of, that's not a zoning. I think basically my point is, I like the spectrum Salem's tried to give us here, but if we don't think there's a simple way to ask this question, then perhaps binary is the way to go. But I think
Well,
we
if
can
we were to
simplify
use-
the spectrum here.
How would you simplify it? Like, meaning less? Or fewer,
So the misnomer is this. Just take the first one, concerning detached housing units. I strongly oppose. Well, it has to be specific to that, against having zoning or prefer a permissive approach. Well, that means that I'm in favor of,
Yes,
with no restrictions.
right.
Oppose having zoning but open to some restrictions. Right, so I'm against the zoning but need some restriction. Or I have no strong opinion, support zoning with some restrictions. Strongly support with strict restrictions. The issue that these things ask suggests that some of these areas have no representation at all or any means by which we can evaluate in our current zoning. The only thing we have that's not here in our zoning is identifying the need. This is identifying needs. So maybe we need to change that statement.
Yeah.
Because the need issue has nothing to do with zoning.
That's my point about ends
So,
versus means.
so
Yeah.
if we want affordable housing, okay, so then we need to identify what does that look like?
Okay.
And so it doesn't mean I'm for or against zoning. I need to know, how does that work and what does that look like?
Right.
You know, so if I were to say, where have affordable housing developments in where? Well, we do have one apartment complex set up on Lufkin Road. That's pretty affordable. We do have a series of duplexes on River Road, down on the flats before you get to Colby Road, or past Colby Road. Those were all developed with the idea of, that's affordable housing.
Yeah.
I've known more people come and go out of those units because they're not owned, they're rented, or they have been rented. Some of them may have gone to condos by now. But that's another means for affordable housing. Maybe the condo units out on not Tiffany Lane, what's the other road? Up off of Mountain Road, there's 4 units there, and in behind, adjacent to the campground, Autumn Hills, there's 4 units, 5 units, condo units there, that tend to be more rental type of approach rather than ownership, like Collins Landing is all ownership, although there are some rentals in there, not many. So those type of things, so,
Yeah, we're really not asking, and when we talk about it's 2 things, right? How is the public going to respond to this based on their information, right? And 2, how is the information going to be used by the planning board to
Right.
help inform them, right?
right.
So what we're really not asking is, what is your thoughtful understanding of zoning in these questions? What we're asking is, how do you feel about affordable housing, more or less? That's the point of this. And the zoning question obfuscates that. That's my opinion.
Yeah,
so if we're gonna use these 5 points in the don't know, take off these parentheses and use.
Yeah, I think that's
If you
true,
do
actually.
that and just go back to, I strongly oppose, I oppose, so then you'll have the,
You're right. That actually,
You know what
I
I
was
mean?
thinking of it backwards. That's cleaner. You
maybe
actually
that
take,
makes sense, but to me, that's the more difficult thing to understand.
well, there's a conflict of interest
yeah,
concerning strongly opposed. I'm against the zoning. What am I against zoning? I'm against having detached, but yet, I want a permissive approach to that? I don't understand that.
yeah, the question should read, should the tone, should the tone have, I keep saying tone. Should the town have zoning regulations? The question should be phrased in such a way that says, I don't know exactly,
but
like,
actually-
do you support, additional detached accessory units? And it would be
Yes.
oppose or support.
right.
You know what I mean?
So
Like, that's what it would
in my
be.
notes here, should we make it easier to build ADUs and where? Then we have the 1 to 5.
Yep.
But then then Airbnb, short-term rentals would kind of be, should we have more rules with regards to short-term rentals? Should we make it easier to build affordable housing? So is this about zoning?
That's what I'm saying. I don't think this is. That's my point.
But-
Because this isn't asking, how do you feel about zoning?
But zoning is sort of how we regulate things in small towns.
Yes, that's right.
So in a way, like, maybe it has to be, does it have to be about zoning? Or can we just ask people, how do you
Okay,
feel
so
about these
question,
topics?
so, yeah, 28 should mention the issue of housing. Housing and open space, housing and.
Yeah, it's housing and,
So
yeah.
the whole, should the town have regulations for the following, and don't take zoning out of that.
Right.
regulations for the following scenarios.
Right.
And don't put concerning, and just get right at the
Yeah, it's
detached
the core
accessory
of the
dwelling
thing.
units.
Yes.
Short-term rentals, affordable housing, commercial development.
And I agree with you from an earlier point, which is there probably is a spectrum, right? It's like, maybe I want whatever.
So then if you use
Yeah.
just the bullets for the answers for that, that works. But when it gets muddy, when you say, I strongly oppose, that means I'm against zoning but prefer permissive approval.
Yeah, you're saying oppose and
Oppose, but-
prefer in the
yeah,
same
that
thing,
doesn't
which doesn't
make
make any
sense.
sense.
Let's kind of scratch
Yeah.
that out and sort of build it from the ground up now. So, should the town have regulations for the following scenarios? That's pretty cool. But then can we use the spectrum again? Because of the issue, I want regulations, but reasonable ones, or,
Well, that would come into, I would support.
yeah, but.
But
so-
it's-
Yeah, it would be
all right,
support,
so
not
there's-
strongly support,
So
or
there's an
or neutral,
inference, there's
right?
an
Yeah.
inference that's automatically made when you support something, that there's gonna be zoning about it. So,
Yeah.
right, so as, for Airbnbs and that stuff, right now, there's no regulations. We're not trying to, I mean, we talked about this at length on the planning board about, we're not trying to negate that. We're not trying to regulate it. We're trying to protect it.
Right.
Because if there's scenarios we're aware of on the lake that people put in new septic systems without
I remember this East Shore Drive problem.
DES issues, because it goes beyond, it's shoreland now. It's not
Yeah.
on the other side of the road uphill that some of these places are putting their septic systems in. So there's a lot more permitting pertaining to that. And that's not deregulating
Yeah.
or not permitting. It means that it's being regulated to protect
Yeah.
the environment around the lake. Because most of those camps historically had a 55-gallon drum in the ground. And it worked because you didn't bathe in your house, you bathed in the lake. Whereas
Yeah.
today, people don't do that because that's gross. But I grew up as a kid, that's where we bathed. We bathed in the lake. We didn't, there was no
I
big.
need, I need to mute before I talk about my
Yeah,
habits.
bathing habits. Yeah, no, I think we're getting closer though, right? Because again, I think the spirit of the question is, do you want kind of, it's not perfect, but kind of like more or less of this thing, right? And support, meaning 5 is more, and don't support,
Yeah, I
meaning
think-
less, is
yes.
1
I
opposed, right?
agree now the yes or no is too limited and at the same time too broad.
And I
But
think
we don't
yeah.
want to, if we want to use these parentheses as part of the process, I think we need to look at how to better phrase those things,
So let me
if we're going to
just
use them.
stro-
Otherwise,
strongly oppose, prohibit entirely. I'm just kind of drafting in my head.
yep,
Then number
Yeah.
2, oppose the strictest rules, and then moving that way.
Yeah, it would, and again, I do think the means and ends thing is important, right? Because it's like, it's how, I'm fairly certain people would understand this, is I'm reading, how do I feel about detached accessory units? Either I'm kind of strongly for them, somewhere in the middle, or I'm strongly against them. And the regulations and the zoning are just the means to achieve the fact that I want more or less of them.
I think that's.
You know what I mean?
I think people can make that leap. I think
Okay,
so.
okay.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we need to ask, right? So taking I don't know if you take out all of the parentheticals or the descriptors. Maybe it's as simple as that, which is get rid of those descriptors, because Bill, to your point, which is a good one, you can't have oppose and prefer a permissive approach
Correct.
in the same answer. That doesn't make any
Actually, so
sense.
if we ask, should the town have regulations for the following scenario, strongly opposed would be, I want no
Well, this is what I mean. You need to take the regulation part
I
out.
think we've figured it out, and we can let our expert draft man take
Yeah.
our, I think it's time for someone to actually take this and give us a new draft, so I think we can move
So,
forward. from
so
this.
I would suggest also that should the town permit the following scenarios, as opposed to have zoning or have regulations.
Yeah, it's that's
Should the
closer.
town permit-
That's closer to it. Yeah, but I agree with you, Phil. We have to work.
Should the town,
Permit the following scenarios.
Because people are gonna answer, I want the regulation that gets me what I want. They're not gonna answer like, I'm either, and if
Right,
more
which-
regulation gives me what I want, then I will get it.
Right,
If
right.
less regulation gives me what I want, then I want that.
Right. But if you're purely thinking about the overall welfare of the community, you're gonna compromise on that.
Yeah, I'm not even saying what I want, meaning like a
Yeah,
selfish
no, I'm
I.
just
I'm
saying-
saying, you know, like, what I think the vision, my response, right? I want my response to be, again, if I think it's better for the community to have more affordable housing, I want the regulation. If more regulation achieves that end, I want more regulation. If less regulation achieves that end, I want less regulation, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but you're not gonna come to the place where there's not gonna be any regulation.
Of course.
So-
Yes. But no, I hear
Because some
you.
of the-
I will take a step, I will take
Some
a
of the
stab at that.
simple scenarios of where to place a septic system is not even in our zoning because it's a state
Sure.
managed thing.
Right.
So some of those things that we don't need to have zoning for that because that's what we voted. Well, it doesn't negate the current zoning.
I
know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. And my whole piece is, you have to have oppose mean, the point is, you have to have oppose mean oppose and support mean support.
Right.
That's what you have to have. You know, so how do we get those things to mean what they say?
I think,
Because again, on the flip side, right now we have oppose aligned with prefer a permissive approach and support
No,
next to
that's-
strict regulations.
yeah, we're done, we're done with
That
this.
doesn't make any
Right.
sense.
We're gonna build it back.
Yeah.
All right, so this housing zoning question
I'd be happy to make a draft of this question and
Sure.
put out feelers for it.
Yep.
Okay,
So
okay,
next,
so it needs work.
yep.
Okay. We've already gone over our hour, so
We can go fast.
do we want to, economic development?
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. And the scale is important, yeah, so, okay. No more businesses, no, yeah, this is fine for me.
Yeah, see, that's the thing that I think he was trying to get at that previous,
Me
because
too.
we've got two different,
Me too.
1, 2, 3 different scales described in this one section.
Yep. Yeah,
Right?
we have
Now,
opposed.
this is not important to very important, then we jumped on to 33, and we got strongly opposed to strongly support. Then very unsatisfied to satisfied, or very satisfied, or don't know. So I guess it's important that we recognize that question needs to be pretty clear as to what we're saying.
Yeah.
I'm not sure those little parentheses are sufficient, so
Yeah.
it's to be worked on. Yeah, I don't know what happened to the Ware Area Chamber of Commerce disappeared to. When we first moved to town, they were the ones who provided the sponsored telephone directory through,
Is that this, where Economic Development Committee?
no,
The
that's
different thing?
totally, that's a totally,
Different
yeah,
thing.
it was a business group that, and I don't know what happened to it.
Okay.
So I'm thinking that with the development of, it may still be acting, but with the development of the internet, we didn't need phone books anymore, so maybe that's where that went, but as of 2018, I think was the last one I have in my possession, so. Okay, anything else on the, we're good on that?
Yeah.
So we're sort of, we're not gonna discuss the consistency of our scales, we're just gonna concentrate on the content of the question
Yeah,
for now.
for now.
Well, no, I think in this one, because there's 3 different scales, it needs to be 3 different scales.
Right,
Great, no, that's fine with me.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think we have to, as far as, I think the consistency thing was, we were looking at, some of the questions were yes, no, maybe.
yeah,
Okay,
And
great.
we wanted to go to a 5-6 point scale,
yeah.
right? Don't know. Natural resources,
Yeah, and we have 1 through 5, yeah.
I guess I don't personally have any notes under economic development.
okay.
Yep. Yeah, no, I was good with that. Yeah, we have 1 not important, 1 through 5, what they don't know. Which one is really prioritize? Yeah, okay.
Good on that,
Yep.
Phil?
Yeah, if, my favorite aspects of where personally are stone walls and dirt roads.
Yep.
And I understand that's not everyone's thing, so I would advocate for stone walls and dirt roads as things to protect, but I understand if that's not relevant for this question.
Well, I think
Natural and
I think
cultural resources.
what we,
Okay. I don't hate those.
at least the
in there.
assessment that we realized recently concerning capital improvement projects, it's just maintaining the present reality of our roads is, those are dirt roads, and unless someone's gonna come up with the money someplace to upgrade them, they're gonna stay dirt roads. Everything we're doing as far as town trucking, 4-wheel drive, police vehicles, 4-wheel drive, fire vehicles, 4-wheel drive.
Yeah.
Everything is suggestive that that's our goal. We're not looking to change that rural mentality, even
great.
within the departments.
No, you had a comment several meetings ago about an individual that came to a planning board meeting and complained about dirt roads, and I was like, wait, is this something people don't like about Ware? We need to protect them. If they're not under attack, then it's okay.
Yeah. No, sometimes it's,
I don't mind
it
putting them in there,
becomes.
seriously, because I happen to agree with you. So I don't,
Yeah, sometimes it's an issue of understanding what type of dirt road it is, that people don't understand the regulations as to what pertains to that dirt road.
My road, Abadger Bridge Road, was paved in my lifetime, but I understand that's because it's a steep, curvy road, and it was pretty expensive to maintain as
Yeah.
dirt, but yeah.
Well, there's a lot of people who will tell me that even 114 was a dirt road in their lifetime.
Phil, I'm honestly okay to put those in there. Unless we can't or shouldn't, to your point about like, hey, if this is transportation or state, like, we don't have a say, that's one thing. But I actually like both of those, to be honest with you, as categories.
So add private agricultural lands, protect wild.
Particularly, yeah, stone walls are cultural, then they're specifically.
Right, so,
and they're
so that's
specifically
already in the
cultural.
zoning.
Yeah, okay, if it
As
doesn't,
an
but,
example, that on North Sugar Hill Road, those new houses that went in, it was a solid stone wall the whole length, and then they subdivided everything. And for a couple of them, they had to get a special exemption to move the stone wall in order to build, because it was where they were accessing the telephone pole to do underground service was down further, so they needed access for equipment through there. But they had to put the stone wall
did
back.
it build back? Yeah,
You
okay,
can't just pull a stone wall wherever you want to pull a stone wall,
right,
because those are natural bounds,
yeah, okay.
generally, so. But I can see suggesting that.
Yeah, I'd put it in, like, it doesn't hurt any,
How are you gonna say it? Stone walls and
you could just,
Preserve stone walls.
yeah,
dirt roads?
Preserve dirt roads.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, that's good, the other stuff's good.
Category assessment, that's pretty straightforward. All those things, you know, some of these land use and growth management are one category in the,
Yeah.
I'm sure we have that still, do we? Yeah, are in the, but I split them out so that we have a better understanding of, is housing zoning, is zoning housing? Right? Is land use different than growth management? Yep. No, natural resources, open space, those aren't necessarily the same thing.
Not necessarily.
And that's another part of the puzzle that I think could be a good education piece for the community, to realize how much town forest there is, how much conservation land there is already, that people don't realize. So, okay, good on this one, category assessment?
Yes.
Sure, yeah.
And then vision, goals, and objectives is the carte blanche of whatever they want to say.
Yep.
Okay? So technically, the only area that we identified as to work out, fleshing out better is housing and zoning.
Yeah, question 28, and as I said, I'll
Okay.
make a new
Yeah.
table, send it, see what you guys think, and take it from there.
Okay, so our next meeting is, so minutes are gonna be next time. And we'll have 2 sets. There's nothing other, do we have any other coming before us this evening?
No, that wasn't on the agenda.
Okay. So our next meeting's November 6th.
Yep.
What day is voting day? The day
Fifth.
before?
Fifth. I was gonna say it's gonna be a long 24 hours for your friend here, but
Are you working,
I'm the moderator, so I'm gonna be there all day. Yeah, and I'll probably still be here. We'll be, you know.
Well,
No,
it's
no,
the
no,
next
we
day.
won't.
It's the next
Yeah,
day,
yeah, yeah, right.
All right. Okay, motion to adjourn.
Yep, second.
yes.
All in favor?
Yep.
3-0. Okay. All right,
Yeah.
then I'll
Cool.
go. Shut your mic off.
Yep.